bus rattled down the winding road, the trees of Willow Creek looming like silent sentinels. Maya watched them blur past the window, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. It had been 10 years since she left this town, vowing never to return. But when the call came, her father sick, barely able to care for himself, she had no choice. Willow Creek was the same, too quiet, too still, the kind of town that swallowed secrets whole. Maya stepped off the bus, gravel crunching beneath her boots. The old general store still stood at the corner, its wooden sign swaying in the wind. The same faces peered at her from behind lace curtains, their whispers reaching her ears before she even crossed the street. She's back. After all these years, she should have stayed gone. Maya squared her shoulders and kept walking. She wouldn't let them get to her. Not now. The house was worse than she remembered. Paint peeling, weeds strangling the front steps. It had been her mother's pride once, but after she died, her father let it rot. Maya hesitated at the door before pushing it open. The scent of dust and old wood filled her nose. Inside, the house was dim, the air thick with neglect. Her father sat slumped in his chair, staring at the blank TV screen. He looked smaller than she remembered, his once strong frame reduced to frail bones and sunken skin. He turned his head slowly, his eyes clouded with something more than illness. You shouldn't have come back. Maya spent the first few days cleaning. The house was suffocating in dust, filled with forgotten memories. Her father barely spoke, watching her from the corner of his eye, as if expecting her to disappear like a ghost. Then, while sorting through her mother's old things, she found it. It was hidden on top of the wardrobe, tucked so deep in the corner that she almost missed it. A worn leather journal, its pages brittle with time. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, her heart pounding as she flipped through it. At first it seemed normal, her mother's neat handwriting, little notes about town life. But then the tone changed. The entries became frantic, the words sharp and hurried. They meet in the woods at night, the symbols, they carve them into the trees. It's not just folklore, it's real, and they'll kill me if they know I've seen too much. Maya's fingers trembled. She read on. I tried to tell Robert. He won't believe me, or maybe he's too afraid to. But I know the truth now. They worship something ancient, and they don't forgive betrayal. Maya's breath came faster. Her mother had been investigating something before she died. She hadn't just drowned in the river like they claimed. She had been murdered. A floorboard creaked outside the room. Maya snapped the journal shut, shoving it under the bed. Her father stood in the doorway, his face pale. His voice was hoarse when he spoke. You need to leave that alone, Maya. The next morning, Maya went into town. She needed answers, and there was only one person she trusted enough to ask. Daniel. He had been her first love, the boy who held her hand on summer nights, whispering promises beneath the stars. The boy she had left behind. She found him at the old garage, wiping oil from his hands, looking almost the same, just older, rougher. His blue eyes darkened when he saw her. Maya, he said, setting the rag aside, didn't think you'd ever come back. She hesitated, searching his face for the boy she once knew. I need your help. Daniel exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. You shouldn't be digging into this. Something in his voice made her stomach twist. How do you know what I'm digging into? She asked. His silence was answer enough. Maya took a step back, the realization hitting her like ice. You already knew. Daniel's jaw tightened. It's not what you think. She shook her head. My mother. She tried to stop them, didn't she? And they killed her for it. His eyes flickered with something. Regret. Maybe shame. Maya, you don't understand. She took another step back, her breath unsteady. You're one of them. Daniel didn't deny it. She turned and ran, his voice calling after her. But she knew the truth now. She was alone in this fight, and Willow Creek had never let its secrets go without a price. Maya's footsteps pounded against the pavement as she ran. The town blurred around her, the familiar streets suddenly foreign. Daniel had been her anchor once, the one person she thought she could trust. But now his face was just another mask in a town full of liars. She reached the house and slammed the door shut behind her, locking it. Her chest heaved as she pressed her back against the wood, trying to think. She needed to leave. But as she turned, her father was standing at the base of the stairs, watching her with tired, knowing eyes. "You found out, didn't you?" he murmured. Maya's breath hitched. "You knew?" Her father sighed and sank into his chair, rubbing his face. "I knew your mother was looking into something. She wouldn't let it go." His voice was hollow, and they made sure she never would. Maya swallowed hard. "And you just let it happen?" His eyes flashed with something sharp. Guilt, maybe even shame. "You think I had a choice?" His voice cracked. "I had you to protect." Maya wanted to scream, to tell him he should have fought. But she understood now. Her father hadn't just been grieving all these years. He had been afraid. "They'll come for you too," he said quietly, "now that you know." Maya's stomach turned. Then, as if the universe wanted to confirm his words, there was a knock at the door. Soft, measured. Not the knock of a stranger. Maya and her father exchanged a look. She moved slowly, peering through the peephole. "Daniel." Maya's heart pounded. "Open the door, Maya," he called. "We need to talk." Her father gripped her arm before she could move. "Don't." But she had questions, and she wanted the truth. Ignoring the fear curling in her gut, she unlocked the door. Daniel stepped inside, his presence filling the small entryway. He looked around, then back at her father. "So you finally told her," he murmured. Her father didn't respond. Maya folded her arms. "Why did you lie to me?" Daniel exhaled. "Because the truth is worse than you think." Maya clenched her jaw. "You're part of it, aren't you? The cult, the Sons of the Veil." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "It's in my blood, Maya. My family has been part of it for generations." Her stomach turned. "And my mother? Did you help kill her?" "No!" His voice was sharp. "I tried to stop it, but it was already set in motion." Maya's nails dug into her palms. "Then why are you here?" Daniel glanced at her father, then lowered his voice. "Because they don't want to just silence you, Maya. They want to use you." A chill ran down her spine. "Use me for what?" Daniel hesitated. Then finally, he spoke. "Your mother wasn't supposed to be the one who died that night." Maya's breath caught. "What?" Daniel's face was grim. "She found out the truth, yes. But they weren't trying to stop her." His voice dropped lower. "They were trying to stop you." The room tilted. Daniel pressed on. "You're different, Maya. That's why they need you. And if you don't leave now, they'll make sure you never do." Silence hung between them. Maya's hands trembled, but she curled them into fists. "No." She wasn't running. If the Sons of the Veil wanted her, they'd have to fight for it. And this time, Willow Creek's secrets weren't going to stay buried. Maya's pulse pounded in her ears. Her mother's death had never been an accident. It had been a warning. And now Daniel was telling her that the cult had never wanted her mother at all. They had wanted her. Her father gripped her arm. "Maya, listen to me. You don't know what they're capable of." She yanked away. "I know exactly what they're capable of. They murdered Mom and made it look like an accident. They've controlled this town for years. And you let them." Her father flinched, but she didn't care. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Maya, you don't understand. You're—" She rounded on him. "And you? You were my best friend. My first love. And the whole time you knew." He exhaled slowly. "I didn't have a choice." Maya's laugh was hollow. "That's what everyone says in this town, isn't it?" Daniel took a step closer. "I'm trying to help you." Maya's hands curled into fists. "Then tell me everything." Daniel hesitated. Then finally, he spoke. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, his fingers tapping against the wood. "The Sons of the Veil aren't just a cult," he said. "They're a bloodline. Certain families in this town. We've been part of it for generations." Maya frowned. "And mine?" Daniel shook his head. Your mother was an outsider. That's why they never trusted her. He hesitated. But your father's side, that's different. She turned to her father, but he wouldn't meet her gaze. Her stomach twisted. Dad? He swallowed hard. My grandmother was one of them. Maya's breath caught. Daniel nodded. That's why they've been watching you since you were born. They believe blood carries power. And yours, it's rare. Maya felt like the walls were closing in. So what do they want from me? Daniel's jaw tightened. They want to finish what they started. Her blood ran cold. Daniel looked at her father. You know what happens when someone refuses them. Her father's hands clenched. Yes. His voice was hoarse. I do. Maya's mind raced. The Sons of the Veil had controlled this town for years. They had killed her mother, and now they wanted her. She had two choices: run or fight. Maya took a deep breath. I'm not going to let them win. Daniel's eyes darkened. Then you better be ready, because they're already coming. The wind howled against the windows, rattling the old house as Maya stood frozen. They're coming? She repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded. They know you found the letters. That means they won't wait any longer. Her father rubbed his hands over his face. We don't have much time. Maya's breath came fast. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to run. But she had spent her whole life running. From her past, from this town, from the truth. Not anymore. She squared her shoulders. What do they want with me? Daniel hesitated, then rolled up the sleeve of his jacket. Faint scars shaped like an ancient symbol covered his forearm. Maya's stomach lurched. It's a mark, Daniel explained. A binding. Every one of us has it. It ties us to the veil. He swallowed hard. And they want to put one on you. Maya shook her head. No, that's not happening. Daniel's jaw clenched. Then they'll kill you. Her father grabbed her shoulders. Maya, listen to me. We can still leave. We can... No. Maya pulled away. They murdered Mom. They took Daniel. They own this town. She looked between them. And I'm supposed to run? Daniel's eyes darkened. Then you need to know what you're up against. Maya exhaled sharply. Tell me everything. Daniel stared at the wooden table, his fingers tracing invisible patterns. There's a ritual, he said. Every generation, the Sons of the Veil choose someone to be the anchor. Maya frowned. Anchor? Daniel's throat bobbed. The one who keeps the veil intact. Maya shook her head. I don't understand. Daniel exhaled. The veil is what keeps the spirit world separate from ours. It's ancient, and it's weakening. That's why they perform the ritual, to keep it strong. Maya crossed her arms. And let me guess, they want me to be their next anchor? Daniel hesitated. Yes. Her stomach twisted. What happens to the anchor? Silence. Daniel's jaw tightened. They don't survive the ritual. Maya's breath caught. Her father slammed his hand on the table. No, I won't let them take her. Daniel leaned forward. That's why we have to move now. Maya's head spun. Wait, you're helping me? Daniel hesitated, then nodded. I tried to ignore it for years. Tried to tell myself I had no choice. His voice dropped. But when I saw you again, I couldn't do it. Maya studied his face. The boy she had loved was still there, buried beneath years of secrets. She took a shaky breath. How do we stop them? Daniel's expression darkened. We end the veil. We destroy it. Maya's father stiffened. That's impossible. Daniel's gaze was unwavering. Not if Maya's as powerful as they think she is. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Her whole life she had felt like an outsider, like something inside her was different. Now she knew why. She was their last hope. And if she failed, she wouldn't be the only one who died. Maya stood in the middle of her mother's old room, the letters still scattered across the bed. The weight of the truth pressed down on her like an iron chain. She had been marked before she was even born. Her mother had known the danger and had tried to fight back, and they had killed her for it. Now they were coming for her. She clenched her fists. Not this time. Daniel stepped closer. There's an old chapel on the edge of town. That's where they'll perform the ritual. Maya met his gaze. Then that's where we stop them. Her father shook his head. Maya, you don't understand. The veil isn't just some spell. It's been in place for centuries. If you destroy it, there's no telling what will happen. Maya swallowed hard. I don't care. If it means ending them, I'll do it. Daniel nodded. Then we need to move now. The night was thick with fog as they approached the chapel. The building loomed like a specter, its stained glass windows glowing with flickering candlelight. Figures in dark robes moved inside, their voices low and rhythmic, chanting in a language that sent chills down Maya's spine. Daniel pressed his back against the stone wall. We don't have much time. Maya took a deep breath. What do I have to do? Daniel hesitated. The veil is bound to the anchor's blood. They were going to use yours. His voice was grim. But if you willingly reject it, if you sever the connection, it will unravel. Maya's stomach tightened. And the town? Daniel looked away. I don't know. Maya exhaled. She had a choice. Break the veil and risk the unknown, or let them take her and let the cycle continue. She met her father's gaze. I have to do this. His face was lined with worry, but he nodded. Maya turned to Daniel. Let's go. They slipped inside the chapel, the scent of burning incense heavy in the air. Hooded figures knelt in a circle, the flickering light casting eerie shadows across their masked faces. At the center of the room stood the high keeper, an older man with silver hair and piercing eyes. We have waited long for this night, he intoned. The anchor stands among us. The cultist turned. Maya froze. Daniel grabbed her wrist. Maya, run! Something cold pressed against her throat. She gasped as an arm locked around her from behind. Daniel's face twisted in horror. The high keeper smiled. You didn't think we would let you interfere, did you? The man holding her tightened his grip. You were always too stubborn, Maya. Her breath hitched. She knew that voice. Slowly, she turned her head. It was her father. Her world shattered. No, she whispered. You're one of them? Her father's expression was unreadable. I did what I had to. I kept you safe. Daniel took a step forward. Safe? You were going to sacrifice her. Her father's grip tightened. The veil must stand. Without it, we have no control. Maya's vision blurred with rage and betrayal. Mom knew, didn't she? Her voice shook. She tried to stop you. Her father's jaw clenched, and she had her answer. The room began to spin. The candles flickered wildly, the air turning electric. The high keeper lifted a dagger. It is time! Daniel lunged. Chaos erupted. Maya twisted, using every ounce of strength to shove her father back. He stumbled, but his grip on her was strong. Daniel fought through the cultists, but there were too many. Maya's heart pounded. The ritual was moments from completion. She had one chance. She closed her eyes and let go. A scream tore from her throat. Not of pain, but of power. The air around her pulsed, a golden light exploding from her chest. The chapel trembled, cracks splitting through the walls. The cultists recoiled, their masks shattering. The high keeper's eyes widened. No! The veil unraveled. The magic that had bound the town for centuries broke apart, dissolving like ash in the wind. And with it, the cult's power crumbled. The high keeper collapsed. Her father fell to his knees, his expression blank. Maya stood at the center of the destruction, her breath ragged. It was over. The morning sun painted the town in soft gold. The people woke to a world that felt different, lighter. The fear that had gripped them for generations was gone. Maya stood on the chapel steps, watching as the ruins of the past settled into dust. Daniel stepped beside her. You did it, he said softly. Maya exhaled. We did. He hesitated. And your father? Maya looked toward the forest, where he had disappeared into the shadows. He made his choice, she said. Daniel touched her hand. What now? Maya looked at the horizon, where a new day was beginning. Now, she said, we start again. Please subscribe, like, and click the notification button for more stories.